The critically acclaimed Steven Spielberg movie, The Post, highlights the historic events surrounding the leaking of the Pentagon Papers by former Defense Department analyst Daniel Ellsberg. The movie dramatizes the Washington Post's decision to publish the top-secret documents, which detailed America's decades-long involvement in the conflict in Vietnam.
Top officials, including President Johnson's first defense secretary, Robert McNamara, were implicated in the resulting scandal. But it was Daniel Ellsberg who alerted the press to what was really going on there. Actor Matthew Rhys plays Ellsberg in The Post.
The study had 47 volumes. I slipped out a couple at a time. It took me months to copy it all.
What the hell?
Well, we were all former government guys. Top clearance, all that. McNamara wanted academics to have the chance to examine what had happened. He would say to us, let the chips fall where they may.
Brave man.
Well, I think guilt was a bigger motivator than courage. McNamara didn't lie as well as the rest, but I don't think he saw what was coming, what we'd find. But it didn't take him long to figure out, well, first of all, to figure out, if the public ever saw these papers, they would turn against the war.
Yep, let the chips fall where they may indeed. Matthew Rhys, welcome to the table.
Thank you very much.
So Time magazine says this about you. You played the role with a muted, matter-of-fact intensity. Wow.
I think I said that.
That's a very
nice of
good
them to print
review.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
very gracious.
But let's talk about Mr. Ellsberg and how pivotal he was in history. Tell us about him.
Incredibly so. I was ashamed to say I didn't know as much as I should know about what he did.
We forgive you.
Thank you. He was a pioneer of his time in his whistleblowing, if you will, and had such a clarity of intention about the wrongdoing this war was doing, not just to the United States, but to the country of Vietnam as well.
And then you meet the real Daniel Ellsberg, who's now 80-something?
Yeah, I think he's yes, we'll say 80-something.
Okay,
yes.
80-something.
Just released his new book. So
And what struck you most about him? What did you want to say to him? Learn from him.
What struck me most was how his campaigning is tireless. He's still as ardent and as fervent as he was then, as he is now, as he was then. About the sort of, you know, the wrongdoings in this world. The more I learned, the more I was staggered by his bravery, really, that he knew the consequences. And this was a man who was a former Marine, working for the government, working for the Pentagon, for RAND. You know, he was a true patriot, but just saw the wrongdoing and says, I can't live with it.
A true patriot, as you say, too, because he was working for RAND and the RAND Corporation. And here he saw a study that had covered 4 different presidents about what had gone into the decision-making of Vietnam, all, you know, warts and all,
Yes,
right? Warts and all. And here it was
Yes.
buried. And he took them out serendipitously and starts photocopying. And in the movie, he has colleagues photocopying the volumes. But in fact, in real life, who was photocopying the Pentagon Papers?
He took his children along with
And how
him.
old were they? I love that little detail, Norah.
I'm not quite sure, but they were something like 11 and 8.
Yeah, they were little
young.
guys,
They were
yeah.
young, and they were kind of cutting the tops off the tops. You know, it said top secret. They were helping him slice the top. It was what got the FBI ultimately onto him, was that, you know, he was divorced at the time, and think children went back, told the grandmother what was happening. Well, like what we've been doing with father, and they said, oh, cutting the top, so it says top secret, and she went.
And Grandma went ding, 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 ding.
What?
Grandma dropped the dime on him.
Yes.
You met him. So when you met him, are you taking notes, or is there something he tells you that says, here's how you play me?
Well, yes, I certainly had 1,000 questions from him. Primarily was my first obvious and stupid question was, how scared were you? And he said, I wasn't that scared. And that's when I realized that he had this clarity of intention about what he was doing, and his conviction was without question, because he'd seen, you know, what the body count was coming back to the United States, and how it was affecting, you know, Vietnamese, both civilian and.
We've talked about Steven Spielberg, the director of this, and he said when he read this script, he wanted to make it immediately, and he did. I mean, the whole production time, I think, was just about a year. What was it like working with Spielberg?
Terrifying. It's terrifying. It's everything you want, and then, you know, the worst thing in the world, all to some extent, when it happens, because he's this. It's like acting in front of God. He's like an icon.
And E.T. was the first movie you saw. That's why I think that's kind of cool. So it's sort of 6 degrees of separation, then you're with him. But I have to talk to you about The Americans. I love this show. Please don't turn page, please. He plays an American spy, a Russian who's living in America, and you guys are spies.
Yes.
But your character is so brutal and so ruthless, yet we still care for this guy. Why?
I was going to say something very boastful then, but I don't know. The writing is
Very
so
boastful,
good.
yeah.
Yes, the writing is so good. No, I think what's great about the show is that it does humanize these people, the Russians. Not just that, those in the intelligence community.
And it's the last season, too.
Yeah.
It is sadly, but bittersweet.
You ready?
Matthew Rhys, thank you so much.
I think so.
Thank
Ready?
you so
Okay.
much
Thanks
for
for
joining
having
us.
me.